session. My name is Imani Kumar. I'm Deputy Secretary General with ICLEA ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability and also the Regional Director with ICLE South Asia Office based in Delhi. As all of you know, G20 presidency and under the G20, we are doing the U20 Manthan. Maybe I will, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, the Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, and also the key person behind the U20 will give more information. But I just want to thank all the panelists, all the participants who are joining this Manthan series as part of the U20. Today, we are talking about more on equitable planning approaches to achieve environmentally responsible behavior at local level. Environmental responsible behavior is one of the major topic which is, I think, all over the world people are started looking into to reduce the to address the climate change issues. So very important topic. We have very less time. Unfortunately, we have only, I'll say, maybe 58 more minutes. Without wasting any time, I will want to invite Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, who is one of the key person in the urban systems, not only in India, but the entire world, I can say, because of his experience in the urban field. And he is presently the Director, National Institute of Urban Affairs, one of the key think tanks in the urban and climate change issues. So without wasting any time, sir, thank you for joining us this session, sir, and taking your time out from your busy schedule. And I just want to hand over the floor to you, sir. Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Imani ji. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon from India. And thank you for joining us today. As Imani said, I'm a director of National Institute of Urban Affairs, and we are really honored that we are a technical secretariat for Urban 20 Engagement Group under the G20 Presidency of India. I'm really also honored for ICLE and Imani ji for giving me an opportunity to speak in this session and discuss this important topic, which we are always being saying, while we want to achieve a environmentally or a net zero, which we all are, in one way or the talking about it, how the equitable planning approaches are going to help us in achieving the broad objectives which we have. What type of environmentally responsive behavior we really need. India has started a program called Lifestyle for Environment, where we are talking about a lot of areas and action areas where we would like to, everyone to start thinking about environmentally responsible behavior. My take here, and I think all of you all will agree, while we want to have an environmental responsible behavior from individuals, it is the responsibility of institutions to create those enabling frameworks, those enabling environment, so that we can really bring that individual behavior up front. So, it is what we are doing in the, we want at the front end, we have to work as an institutions at the back end. And I think there are a number of experts who are going to talk about it. We all know about urbanization and its challenges. I particularly feel planning approaches are going to be critical while we are taking this decisions. What type of net zero, how do we move this transition stage from here to the net zero journey, which we all want to really take over. And looking at while we are looking at the lost paradise and improve the new way of thinking, 3-4 things which are very crucial to do that. And one which I think is, we have to have our planning principles clear and start thinking of what type of planning principles. The business as usual approach of our planning may not work. So we need to think, what are those planning approaches? We also need to look at how this planning become more inclusive and climate resilient. Third thing which we need to do, what type of regulatory framework or institutional frameworks we really require if we want to move towards that direction. While we have those ambitions and those expectations, but what are those institutional and regulatory frameworks which need to be put in place? And fourth is we need to really look at what are those financial instruments available. People talk about three-pronged approach. People talk about five-pronged approach. I always talk about four-pronged approach because stable is stable only when there are four legs and four legs are intact. So for me, these are the broad four-leg approach which we want to really make the table stable. So that's here. And I think equitable planning entails a considering the needs and aspirations of all the segments of societies, particularly marginalized communities. We need to really see when we talk about planning, how to make it more equitable. And how do you address those, just how do you make it more equitable? It's very nice. We all have aspirations. We all have thinking, but the question is, how do you create those legal instruments which are there, which govern the cities? And as far as I know, and any planning instrument which the city has is either they have 5 or 6 legal instruments, and how do you bring equitability aspects or equitability lens in all these legal, and then it starts from the master plan. It talks about a bylaws of the city. It also talks about a project development process of the city. When the projects start being envisaged, what type of projects are there? It also comes into a monetary aspect of city. So while we are talking about planning aspects, it's not only a physical plan, but overall life cycle of that intervention has to look at bringing in equitable and environmental responsible behavior in our planning process. In India, different cities have started taking bold steps to address a number of challenges to bring that environmentally responsible behavior. We have a city like Indore, which looked at USP as a waste management for themselves and said that, okay, let me look at waste management and then change the every aspect of our planning process using that as a bigger lens. That has been taken. City like Jaipur has been taken, but I think the U20 is an opportunity to really not only talk about what we are going to look at individual cities, but I think with your collective efforts and your collective wisdom, which can guide us to develop those communique and push this discourse further, is how do we really convert intentions to actions? And that's the broad objective which we have, because I strongly believe that we know what to do. We know why it should be done. We also know, its importance or its outcomes. But a question which is always we don't talk about and we give a little attention is the person who is going to do it. Our cities have those, can we address those who's, or who is going to put a pen to the paper? And I think while we are talking about actions, we need to see who is going to take that action. Who is the responsible person who will really take this journey forward, who will help us and give us a direction to move forward. And that is where if we can change the discourse from how, where, and what to who, I think that's the area where we need to really think about. And I know that we have gathered experts here who are going to talk about it and dwell upon it. For me, the limited and or you can say broader objective is what India can leave behind, because this is a 6th U20 cycle. We already have it can be, if objective is just another communique, then we are not really looking community. How do we drive? And that's the opportunity and that's the challenge with how do we drive the urban discourse? Because we saw in COVID, we all talked about that we need to change the urban discourse. I think this is an opportunity which India has got to really drive this urban discourse. And what we learn from Indonesia, what we do in India, how do we transfer this knowledge forward to continue the urban discourse further to Brazil and then to South Africa is where we should see that continuum should happen. It should not be that, I work out my communique, I spend it, I pat my back, India did it. But it's a question is how do you continue this discourse of bringing environmental sustainability? And it requires Three things very important, and I think that's the beauty of this webinar, as well as this discourse which we are going to happen during the U20. And these three things are advocacy, advocacy, and advocacy. And I think if we can really bring advocacy towards the environmentally responsible behavior, we exchange the tools and templates that cities don't have to start from the bottom again and again and again, but create those legacy of tools and templates and transfer of knowledge through this type of a discourse will be I think half the battle we could really achieve during these things. I don't want to take much time, but I again extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us today. I'm excited about the fruitful and engaging discussions that will come out of it. And idea is what we learn, what we discuss, it should really be a part of that white paper which we develop, as well as be a part of influence the communique, and more than communique and white paper, it should really influence the action on the ground and give a guidance to the cities and states with a lot of best practices, a lot of ways of doing things. And with that, looking forward to have a great discussion. And thank you again for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your guidance and the four-legged theme. What you have said that, and I will now maybe hand it over to Mareike, my colleague from the Bonn office. Mareike, the floor is yours for the next 45-50 minutes, I think.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to both of you for your lovely opening remarks by our co-hosts, ICLEI South Asia and the National Institute for Urban Affairs in India. I think I really love the way you framed it, Mr. Hitesh, intentions to action. So let me help set the scene for the conversation, and then we have a wonderful panel discussion with colleagues from around the world to share their perspectives on this complex topic of equitable planning approaches to achieve environmentally responsible behavior at the local level. So this is very much an opportunity, as has been framed. It is about people, planning, about policy, finance to enable local action. And also that supporting and enabling framework. How can multi-level governance and multi-level action support across all levels of government to help our citizens move forward to have a better quality of life? So we want to showcase that leadership today. Talking about urban areas, this is very much where we see an influx of population coming from the neighboring regions for job creation, looking for jobs, looking for economic opportunities and opportunities to scale up their own quality of life and bring maybe perhaps that lens in the future. We will also see a lot of climate migration happening, which will be adding the burden of a rapid unplanned growth in our cities. This is something that is very challenging to the local governments. And that unplanned growth leads to a lot of related problems, mostly dealing with inadequate service provision, basic services, access to water and sanitation, to energy. Infrastructure is not ready. You also have then added pollution, and then, of course, resulting in poor quality of life. This is something we want to deal with when we talk about equitable planning approaches. You know, in cities that this is where people get jobs. There is a massive center of economic growth in our bigger cities, in our smaller cities, with employment generation and contributing to the national gross domestic product. So it's an important space where we need to act and where we can act. And there are, again, huge opportunities if we do zoom in on equitable planning approaches to make sure that we stop environmental degradation and uplift people. Here we can look at policy interventions, but also local action, specifically implemented by the local government, but they need the support of the next level government, the national government, the subnational state level, of course. One good practice example is Mission Life, looking at the lifestyle for environment, which aims at promoting sustainable and healthy lifestyles to bring individual behavior at the forefront. Now, this is really about people. It is about you and me. It is about people in our cities, our neighbors. How can we help them understand and engage with citizens in communities to help them understand what is their possibility and contribution to making what we call environmental responsiveness, behavior in a responsible manner, also showing leadership and helping others to understand what needs to be done here. So we will be zooming in on 3 different cities in India, in Indonesia, and also a colleague from Europe, very different contexts in each case. And that is actually exciting because we're now trying to learn from different lessons from all the cities, but also looking at opportunities for replicating and cross-informing each other. So I would, without much ado, like to introduce my panel. And I'm not sure if we have Mr. Sudhir Sharma having joined us already, but he could potentially then set the scene. We also, this event not only links to the U20, but is also kindly co-supported by the GEF-funded Urban Shift program. So we want to introduce what Urban Shift is and how that also frames this conversation, looking at opportunities for action and what kind of support is already available. So Sudhir, may I ask you to unlock your screen and show your face and join our panel to help set the scene with the first presentation on urban shift. I see
Hi,
you are with us.
thank you, Maraike. I guess you can hear me, but I am not sure if my camera is working.
No, excellent.
Yeah, okay, great. Maybe I will not kind of spend time on figuring out why the camera is not working. Let me share my screen, and I need somebody to enable my sharing of the screen.
Okay, as we enable access to you, maybe I can give a bit of background on the Urban Shift project.
Yeah.
So this is funded by the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, and it's part of a programmatic approach that started under GEF's called Sustainable Cities Initiative, and we renamed it in GEF 7, calling it Urban Shift to make it a bit more punchy, and it will continue into GEF 8 as well. And it's very much a cities-focused lens that brings the conversation between national and local governments, of course, as well. We see your screen, so the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Maraike. And I think, Maraike, you have already introduced the first set of slides that I have. Hi, colleagues. Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to join and present the brief background on Urban Shift program, which is a GEF program. And I'm representing my colleagues who manage this global project from Paris and Nairobi. I'm Sudhir Sharma. I'm based in Bangkok, and I am responsible for GEF projects in Asia Pacific. With that small introduction, so as Maraike was mentioning, cities are basically the key factors contributing to what in UNEP we have been calling the 3 planetary crises: the climate change, the nature, and the pollution. And it is basically based mostly on the consumption of the resources and the utilization of the resources within cities, which directly or indirectly cause a major part of the impacts that we are seeing across the globe. So GEF, in that particular perspective, had designed this program to see how the resources that the GEF allocates to developing countries can be used to address all these 3 issues in a more integrated manner, rather than looking at them in a more, separate silos. So this program essentially is focused on cities, as Maraike mentioned. It's focused on enabling the leaders within the cities to both look at how can the cities develop, become much more livable and be more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. So the focus is not purely in terms of addressing the environmental issues, but also looking at basically how actually all the people who live in their different income categories, different economic categories, can actually benefit from the way the cities develop. As you know, GEF program is essentially targeted and focused on developing countries and providing resources. So this program is focused in the 3 regions of the world: Asia, Africa, and Latin America, covering about 20 countries. Now, in terms of the GEF structuring, so there is the global program, and this is the global program we are talking about. And then each of the countries where these are also having their own individual, what is called the country or a child project. The country and the child project gets to a much more deeper set of analysis and actual, finding solutions and implementing solutions work. Whereas this global project is more focused on actually providing the tools, the knowledge, the exchange across different countries which are participating in this program. In terms of, I've already mentioned, this is funded by the JEF, and this is a partnership. The global program is a partnership of UNEP, WRI, C40, ICLEI, and it also works with UNDP, World Bank, and ADB as part of the partnership. So these are the entities which are jointly designing and implementing the activities of the global program. Some of the entities like UNEP, UNDP, and ADP, which are also the implementing agencies of JEF, are also the implementing agencies for individual country or child project, as we call them. Just to give you a brief kind of overview of the countries presented. I'm not going to talk about all the countries, but you can see that there are about 20 countries. So this program, its precursor was in JEF 5. JEF 6 were where is what fully developed. And it has continued in JEF 7, and then we have a following program in JEF 8. So between 6 and 7, we have about 20 countries, and as you can see, about 50 cities which are covered under the program. The coverage in Latin America and Asia is quite extensive. Africa possibly not that extensive, but needs to be kind of extended further. Now, as Mareike was mentioning, and I mentioned earlier, it's not purely looking at just the climate change program. The program actually looks at all the three areas of biodiversity conservation, landscape restoration, climate change, and looks at integrated solutions. So the whole objective of this program is to have global environmental benefits in these three areas. So the program itself is aimed at reducing about 184 million metric tons of CO2 emissions. It advances the management and restoration of about 1 million hectare of land and 38,000 hectares of marine habitat. And the impact of the project based on the cities which are covered and which benefit is about 58 million. And these are what one would say that within the cities which are directly under the program. But all these programs, the global program as well as the country programs, also have a linkage to expanding its impact and footprint beyond the cities in which they are actually working and carrying this message and the solutions that these projects and the global program develops to other cities within those countries. Now, at the global level, as I mentioned, the city level is actually looking at city-specific solutions, analysis, and how can that be kind of then implemented. The global level program is actually in support of the child project or the country level programs. Now, what does the global program do? It has broadly, I would say, 4 areas where it provides support to the country or the child projects. One is in terms of essentially carrying out assessments, looking at the city assessments, establishing the baseline, identifying the needs, which could then help the country projects to actually design, deliver those kind of needs within the country. But that also works as a feedback into the global program in designing its own capacity building and awareness raising programs into it. So the second part of the global program is then specifically that, looking at bringing to the city level the tools of analysis, integrated analysis, designing specific solution in specific areas, looking at investment, how to raise investments for sustainable investments with cities. So there are a number of these programs that the global project would carry out. These would be both at the national level, at the regional level, as well as at the regional level. Like for first of this in Asia would be happening in September, if I remember correctly, as part of the global program. The third part of it is actually also enabling the country or child projects where they have identified certain investment opportunities to link up with investors. So having investor roundtables where countries can bring in their projects, get the advice from the experts at the global project level, plus also interact with the financing institutions, multilateral development banks, and other development agencies which are working with the countries, providing necessary resources. So that's the third aspect of that particular support that the global program will provide. And then the fourth one is in terms of peer-to-peer exchange. So as I mentioned, there are about 50 countries now working, 50 cities, 20 countries which are working in these two programs, GEF6 and GEF7. So global project works towards providing a platform where the countries can share their solutions that they have come out with, their challenges that they have faced in developing and identifying solutions, and also interacting with other cities and countries to see how they could adopt some of the solutions which other cities or countries have found for themselves and tailor them to their requirements. So those are the four broad areas in which the global program actually provides support. So in a way, the global program is developing a global knowledge, global tools, which then helps the country or child projects in implementing their programs, plus also providing the necessary platform for interacting within the countries and with different development partners to help the dissemination of this message, as well as scaling up of these solutions which the projects find among themselves. I'm not going to kind of go through the list. You will have the presentation. You can see it's a very extensive set of work that the global program will be doing over this 4-year time period, which is going to be implemented. And as I mentioned, essentially there are a number of partners. So ICLAI is responsible for the Asia region in terms of the project activity, plus they are also responsible for a certain set of analytical work which would help the country and the child projects within the country. With that, thank you, and I pass it back to you, Mareike, and if there are any questions, I can answer them later on. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sudhir, for sharing a snapshot of the Urban Shift project. And indeed, we're going to do some interesting training opportunities that would also be open to any local governments around the world as well. So do please watch that space. We will be releasing our training program in September at the ASEAN Forum. From ICLAI's side, I think we are very delighted to work with UNEP specifically as the coordinator of Urban Shift, and of course working in collaboration with WRI-C40 and our implementing agencies that you mentioned. It is an exciting space, it's an evolving space, and we certainly help to step up cities and specifically local governments' capacities. Again, back to the topic of this particular U20 Manthan, equitable planning approaches to achieve environmentally responsive behavior at the local level. We will be hearing from 3 cities now, very different perspectives, very different angles, and that makes it so interesting also for the discussion which we will have at the end. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our colleague from Pune Municipal Corporation in India, Mr. Nikhil Mijar, the transport planner for the corporation. So if you would like to share your thoughts specifically also on how to get this people-centered approach and the equitable approach. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, all of you. I welcome my warm regards to all of you. And this is a great opportunity. I thank UNEP, NIUA, GEF for giving us this opportunity. So, should I share the screen?
Please go ahead. If our colleagues can enable that, that would be wonderful.
It's disabled.
Maybe as we're waiting for you to enable your screen, maybe you could explain briefly where Pune is and a bit of details about the city.
Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. If you could put it in full slide mode, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Pune is one of the very important cities in India. It is near Mumbai. It is 150 kilometers from Mumbai. It is one of the most historic cities in the country. The city has got a long history of rulers, from Shivaji Maharaj to Peshwas to Britishers and to all the rulers, and we have had long legacy of educational institutes, industries, IT sector, and it's a very pioneering city. Pune Municipal Corporation takes a lot of initiatives in bringing new things, initiating new things. So this is a brief presentation about the environmental responsive behavior in local area and what all Pune Municipal Corporation is doing about it. So I will run through the presentation, and this presentation is structured into three parts. First part is about what all PMC is doing in terms of environment. The second part is about what specific projects PMC is doing about transportation. And the third assignment, or the third part, is about what PMC has initiated a new initiative about environmental responsive behavior in local area. So it's a case study. So I will run through the presentation. If you have any doubts, you can please ask me. As we all know, I have structured the presentation in such a way that all of you can relate to it. So we have 5 basic elements, which is earth, energy, air, space, and water. So what all Pune Municipal Corporation is doing in all these 5 sectors. So this is the list of what all we are doing in the first sector, which is the earth. So in this sector, we are majorly doing plantation of indigenous species, increasing the green cover, e-waste management, solar water heating. We are doing solid waste management, and increasing the environmental impact on the land by increasing the green cover and all these things. So this is the first initiative that PMC is doing in the earth sector. In the second sector, which is the air, PMC has initiated a lot of changes in terms of monitoring the air quality, putting ban on firecrackers and open burning, e-mobility, promotion of e-mobility, e-buses in the city, charging infrastructure. So a lot of these things are being initiated by Pune Municipal Corporation for betterment of citizens. The third is about the water. We have taken up 3 projects in water. We are recharging the groundwater aquifers by a recharge project. We are creating small water catchment zones and filtering the water and recharging the groundwater aquifers. We are now building 11 new sewage treatment plants for waste water not to be let into the river. At the same time, we are now also developing our river, rejuvenating our river and beautifying it. In the fourth initiative, which is the water, the energy, we are maximizing LED street lights by reducing the coal dependency. We are installing solar panels on all the public buildings, and we solar panels all projects, buildings in city. Almost 3 lakh properties in the city have now got solar panels installed over them. The fifth is the space, where we are promoting environmental responsive behavior. We have e-pledge on social media. We are taking awareness sessions with citizens. The state, which is Maharashtra state, has promoted a Maji Vasundhara or Earth kind of program, where Pune has initiated a lot of new initiatives in terms of bringing school children, local communities, and organizing community participation workshops, funding workshops for promotion of environment. So these are the initiatives that PMC is doing in all these 5 sectors. These are a list of some of the awards that Pune Municipal Corporation has won. So we just won a green platinum certification in April 2023 for the green from the Green Building Council, which is the highest certification for any city. We have received 2 awards from Maji Vasundhara or the My Earth initiative by the state government, by the Honorable Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister. We have won the C40 Bloomberg Award, Swachh Sarvekshan Award, and Vasundhara Award for our green initiatives in e-mobility, cleanliness, and public transport in the city. And now we are also working on a Global Mayor's Challenge, and we have won the award from the COVID initiatives and Scotch Award for child-friendly mobility in the city. So these are the kind of awards in terms of environment that Pune Municipal Corporation has won. These are some of the major initiatives that Pune Municipal Corporation is doing. We're building a huge network of metro. So first phase of metro is 2 lines, and in the upcoming phase, we have over 100 kilometers of metro line, which is proposed. And the work is going on parallelly on all the fronts. We are also promoting e-buses in the city. So a huge influx of buses is being bought. So we have over 1,500 buses on CNG, and we are reducing the diesel dependency. And now we are having over 300 electric buses, and now we are purchasing over 500 more electric buses. At the same time, now we are also promoting cycles. So public cycle sharing scheme is being promoted in the city. E-bikes are being promoted in the city. So these are some of the major initiatives in terms of public transit and non-motorized transit. Pune is also the city which is having its own street design guidelines. So we have made it mandatory to all the streets to have walkable, shaded, clean and attractive footpaths, cycle tracks wherever possible, green covers with local indigenous plants, defined parking bays and utility spaces on the streets. Pune has also been taking initiatives in promoting environmental friendly behavior. It is the first city or the first municipal body in the country which celebrates Pedestrians Day on every 11th of December to promote awareness about pedestrians, safety about pedestrians, and bring in citizens' behavioral change in terms of looking at pedestrians. So this is a great initiative, and PMC has been doing it since last 3 years. At the same time, we have changed our specifications, and we are promoting environmental materials in our road construction. We are promoting use of waste plastic in our bitumen roads. We have also made compact blocks of waste which are being used as a base material from the construction waste on paver blocks. We are using pervious concrete blocks so that water can be percolated inside the ground. We are using rainwater harvesting tanks and aquifer recharge filter pits all along the road so that rainwater can be used to recharge, filtered and recharged into the aquifers. And we are planting a lot of indigenous plants and protecting the trees from getting it lost in the environment.
Mr. Major, could I ask you to maybe wrap up? We would need to also have 2 other speakers to share.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now this is the case study of the behavioral change. We have recently launched a new project called School Travel Improvement Plan. Pune is an educational city, and a lot of school children are there in the city who have lost the right of moving independently in the city. So to bring back the independence in children and to promote non-motorized transit in the school kids and to reduce their dependence on parents, we are promoting this. We have formed this new plan, which is called the School Travel Improvement Plan. We had launched a competition. 3 winners have won this we have selected 3 zones. In all these 3 zones, designs were prepared and trials were taken on street as to how tactical urbanism can help school kids to reach the schools safely. Awareness programs were taken and feedbacks were taken from school children and their parents and school authorities. So a lot of positive response has been received on all these 3 areas, and a lot of initiatives and new interventions have been conducted, and successful trials have been conducted in all these 3 zones. And these 3 zones, you can see the pictures have come up really well. And now we are in the process of preparing a guideline, which is a specific school area guideline where new kind of elements will be done. We have mapped all the schools in the city and ITC friendly zones, and we have come up with 19 zones where such school initiatives will be done in coming years. And our guideline will be prepared, and this guideline will be applicable in all these zones. And now we are in the process of implementing the transit-oriented development guideline and pilot project with NIUA, JEF, UNEP, and ICLE in the Urban Shift program. Yes, so I end my short presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely inspiring leadership, and congratulations on such a wonderful, remarkable list of activities. And I guess you haven't even shared half of it. So very nice to see the diversity of opportunities you've got there. Thank you so much, Mr. Niku Vijar. There are some questions if you would care to look at the questions and answers. Maybe there are some elements you could answer there as well. Without much ado, let's move to another country. Let's move to Indonesia. I'm delighted to introduce you Ms. Erni Pelita Fitratunnisa, the Head of Pollution and Environmental Degradation Controlling at the Jakarta Environmental Agency in Indonesia. So the floor is yours, ma'am, over to you, and I think you also have a couple of slides to show. So you could share your screen.
Voice is getting echoed.
Indeed, there's a bit of an echo. I'm not sure if there's any IT equipment close to your screen, so maybe just remove that a bit further and try again.
Bisa dimatikan Bu Fitri, device yang connect satu saja, yang lain bisa dimatikan kalau ada yang dekat Bu Fitri.
Good evening, the all speaker, the all participant. I'm Fitri from Environmental Agency, Jakarta Province. I'm honored to get the opportunity to represent the Jakarta government to share with you our experience on enhancing climate action from the stakeholders engagement aspect, which we have implemented. I hope it will provide good insight. The first, I will begin by quickly share the profile of Jakarta from geographical, climatic, and demographic situation as a context. Jakarta plays a vital role as the capital of Indonesia. There are 13 rivers flow across Jakarta in a land size more than 600 kilometers square. Proportion of the sea cover is more than 10 times of the land size. From demographic aspect, population is more than 10 million people with density 14 people per kilometer squares. For the climate change issue is on top of the environmental challenge in Jakarta. Energy sector account to 96% on total GHG emission, and the rest from the waste sector, we witness more frequent and rise in intensity of extreme weather on climate, even due to climate change. We are dealing with several threats. Our government realized that we have to take steps in our system to use our resource to control climate change. I want to share you some key milestones that reflect how to Jakarta have moved forward from their commitment into action. In 2007, Jakarta is joining C40 to work together in global cities networking to tackle climate change. In 2009, we set the target for emission reduction 30% by 2030. In 2012, the government issued some regulation which put climate concern at the center. To name some of those are spatial planning 2030, local regulation concerning local long-term development plan, governor decree concerning GHG reduction plan, and governor decree concerning green building. In 2019, issued governor decree incorporating air pollution and climate change and adaptation into strategic local priorities. It continues to evolve and progress in the commitment and action. In 2020 and 20, we formalized the working group called as Mitigation and Adaptation Working Group. It is a platform for all stakeholders to support. In the some years, United Nations recognized of city-level climate action achievement as part of the NDC, and Jakarta chaired the urban 20. In 20 and 21, there are also some key milestones in the regulation, like governor instruction concerning control of the impact of climate disasters and others, updating the green building regulation and making adjustment to mitigation and adaptation working group. In terms of regulation and policies which become the government mandate, there are some examples from spatial planning which consider climate in the plan. Local development plan recognize climate change and put it among development priority sectors. From climate-specific policy and approach, I would like to mention our GHG emission reduction plan, which was enacted as governor decree in 2012. The Climate Kampung program, or we call Kampung Iklim, making climate change as one of the local priorities, and the most recent governor decree on Jakarta's low carbon and climate resilience development plan. This slide highlights components in the low carbon and climate resilience development plan. The plan addresses priority mitigation sector, including energy, waste, pollution, IPPU, and other sectors. Some priorities measures are listed in each of the sectors. In the other section, the plan highlights the importance of community participation in adaptation to climate change. There are 7 adaptation sectors in the plan, which consist of housing and residential area, food security, climate resistance infrastructures, coastal and small island, water resources management, and energy management, where we recognize the central contribution of community. The plan set the target for emission reduction 50% by 2030 and net zero emission by 2050. Climate Kampung program or Kampung Iklim is one of the initiatives in community-based climate change action. Proclaim involves community and stakeholders to enhance adaptive capacity to impact of climate change, reduce GHG emission, and recognize the efforts to improve local welfare based on local conditions. Where climate kampung is defined as the smallest geographical unit that is equal that the neighbor we call rukun warga, kamles, and what kelurahan or village level whose community is practicing continuous adaptation and mitigation. In 2022, we have identified number of more than 200 climate kampungs spread all of the province. To name some types of activities under climate kampung initiative are rainwater harvesting, biopore hole infiltration, infiltration well, water use efficiency, integrated farming, we call urban farming, improving house air circulation, practicing TR, reduce, reuse, recycle, capturing methane gas in septic, and then biogas, solar cell installation, organic fertilizer using greening, and agroforestry. Those are interesting from the point of view how they use their resources to improve adaptive capacity and support the effort to the reduce emission at community level. Community plays a strategic role in climate change adaptation and mitigation. With their local resources, we bring you some example of the initiative. From rainwater harvesting, greening, application of biopore infiltration hole, popular waste bank model, practicing 3R, apothecary farm with plastic waste, waste sorting, home garden utilization, and some other interesting initiatives coming from the community. For the slide 10 till 13, the next few slides document some notable achievement in climate change mitigation. Mention only some from the slides as an example. Those are the installation of rooftop solar panels on government-owned building, bicycle lanes, sidewalks in several locations within the city focus, the transit-oriented development location, certification of green building from Green Building Council Indonesia, increase up to 83% public transportation coverage, integrated physical facilities integration through transportation hub the connect rail, base transportation, BRT, paratransit, and cycling facilities in a single location. Expansion and new parks, deployment of a low emission zone implemented by traffic engineering, waste awareness program. The other plan in progress to construct planning in progress, 5 waste to energy or intermediate treatment facilities plan in the city of Jakarta can process domestic waste using suitable environmentally friendly technology to reduce 70 till 90% of waste transport to Bantar Gebang final disposal landfill. We understand the stakeholders' engagement is critical in fighting against climate change. The government initiated what we identify as Forum for Large-Scale Social Collaboration. This platform allows multi-stakeholder collaboration and encourages community participation in environmental management. This way, we expect to involve more stakeholders to bring less impact. It's a platform for collaboration with potential for supporting us in research and study, provision of supporting infrastructure and facilities to improve quality of the environment for the community, supervision and socialization, technology innovation, and supporting in program and policy innovation. Yeah, I think this close. Before I want to inform to pausing to wrap up my presentation. I would like to conclude that we are aware that all the move would still continue and elevate in the scale, resulting in more impacts for mitigation and adaptation. But we are committed to planning and process that are collaborative, equal, engaging, and inclusive. I'll stop sharing here, and I'm happy to take any question and feedback. Thank you, the participation for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fitri. This is also an amazing range of things you're doing, and I really like the framing. Both you and Pune have been clustering these topics and projects to make it also more understandable and digestible, I guess, to the civil society. We will field questions after our third speaker, so I would now like to move to a different continent, to Europe, where I'm delighted to introduce to you Mr. Paolo Gandolfi from the beautiful city of Reggio Emilia in Italy. He's the head of the Territorial Development Department and would like to share also a different perspective, looking at also how a smaller city can step up activities, but also working with different levels of government. So, Paolo, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. Good evening for Jakarta, or even good night already. I don't know. But anyway, as you said, we are a small city, so it's not comparable with Pune or Jakarta. Our city is not as big, but I want to show you not exactly what we did, because obviously I could show many things, but I would just talk you how to work together with the different level of government to achieve some results in environment goals. So I share my my screen for a very short presentation. Okay, as you can see, Reggio Emilia is a small city, 170,000 inhabitants, who stays in the north of the country, which is the closest part to the rest of Europe, and is also the most industrialized part of the country, and with a very strong agriculture. Actually, the city is inside a part which you see in this slide, which is the red one that you can see in the middle of the picture, which is the Pianura Padana. It means the plain of the River Po, which it works more or less like a big city, because it's a very sprawl area with 50 million inhabitants, and as you can see from this picture, is one of the most polluted area of Europe. Obviously, we face to many problems from environmental point of view. I can give you the view of the fourth still big problem that we have to face. Some of others, like the waste management, are archived already, but there are other that we have to work on it. The air pollution, because the plain is a kind of closed room with the Alps mountains on the north and the Apennine mountains of the south. So it's a kind of room with just one windows that doesn't change our air. And that's, with all that population and industrial production, it means that we have always a big problem of air pollution. Then, as I told you, is is a kind of diffuse city where there are 100 cities which are connected quite close each other, with other smaller city in the middle. So it works like a kind of big city connected with motorways, high-speed railway, of exchange of population moving from one city to the other. Then, as we are on the southbound of Europe, we are facing to the problem of the climate change, because we used to be a very equilibrated climate area with cold winter and hot summer, but we are going to have a very often not so cold winter without snow. We are not used to not have snow, but already 5 years that we don't have any snow in our region, and with the hotter summer. So we have to face about that, because it's a very, very strong problem even for the local activities, for example, for all the agricultural production, which is very, very strong in our area. And then the water management, because as you can understand, all the plain of the north of Italy, where all these 15 million of inhabitants lives, used to be just a flood, used to be just a place with water not used for to live, I mean, in the ancient past. Then from 2000 years ago, we start to fight the water and to keep the water far from all the urban area. But the urban area are grow, and the places and the spaces for the river became narrowest. So we are still fighting about that. In fact, in the last month of May, not in my city, but in part of our region, have been a very big flood that have been a big problem. So as I told you, just a small city, but I think even the bigger city of our area, which is Milano, cannot fight alone against this big, huge problem. So we have to bring a strong relation with all the different levels of governance that we have on our land, starting from the United Europe, which is Unione Europea in Italian, sorry, European Union, and which is the strongest master of, we could say, the leader of the vision of the change in environment direction, because gives to all the nation of Europe directive, the idea what to do, in which direction move all together. Then we have the state, the national level of government that makes laws, especially, so gives us a lot of rules to do that. Then we have the region, which is called Emilia-Romagna. It sounds similar to the name of the city. I'm sorry for that, but two different things. Then we have the province of Reggio Emilia. That's the province due to the city of Reggio Emilia, which is more than 500,000 of inhabitants, and then the municipality. And then we don't have to forget at the end lots of local actors, which are the simple citizen, but especially the economical actors. As I told you, European Union give us a directive, give us some major plans, so targets to be achieved, then give us policies and finance, not really in our region, but in many other parts of Europe, yes. Then the national state, it's important because it makes law, and many things that we have to do needs to be covered by a special law, because it's not always possible to do what we do. For example, I told you that waste management have been already, we can say that is something that we manage in our area, because is a line between this 6 level of governance of the policy, and the national law is important, because if not, you cannot achieve anything. Then the region, which is makes laws, and that's the first level to make real plans for to change something. For example, is due to the region, the plans for the quality of air, the plans for the water management, and some others. Then the province, which is, I told you, is the summary of the Reggio Emilia and all the other municipality around the city, which, for example, is planning about waste management, is planning also about air, is planning about main infrastructure of roads, etc. Then the municipality, which I could say makes the biggest job, which the plans, the urban mobility, sustainable mobility plans, or even water, energy, and whatever. I saw and admired about the presentation of Jakarta and Pune, so I could say more or less the same topics that they show. We have plans sometimes for the first time, some other already the third or fourth generation of plans that about that. And so the city has a strong role about that. Cannot make any laws, so we cannot decide anything about the right of the people. We have to just to do what the national and regional level does. We are very strong in policy because obviously policy and action, because the city is the closest place to the citizen. So it's the real terminal of any kind of policies coming in, up. Because the citizen, they recognize themselves on all the local actors, they recognize themselves on the city, and so they accept to do something if the city gives the input to do. Obviously, it's useful if United European Union, the national Italian state and the regional state, they do policy like advertising, or they speak what we need to do. But at the end, the municipality is the real connection with the citizen, with the local actors. And last but not least, the local actors, which I told you, are made by obviously by the singular citizen. All the group of citizens organized in a committee or local groups that we are very supporting in both social behavior, but also environmental behavior. And then it's also very important, all the groups that recognize them in, for example, in industrial or agricultural activities, which are very impacting on the aspect that we want to manage. So this is the main, I think, challenge that we have to face in the moment, because what we can see after a long experience of activities on managing all the city, that without a clear line that connect all the different level of governments, is nearly impossible to achieve something of significant. I mean, for example, I told you about the waste management. It's clear that the directive of Europe, which says which is the pyramid of the waste strategy, which put on the hand of the strategy sorry, I don't know the German word. The landfill, sorry, I found the German, the English word. The landfill, which is the bottom of all the strategy, and the incinerator, which is the last bottom, that helps because gives to all the other level the right direction to do. For example, the national state to say how to build incinerator only after to improve all the policy of etc. And the regional level and the province, and at last the citizen. In that way, for example, we have the highest rate of recycling waste in Italy, which is close to the 75%, and whatever. Or the same things I could say on mobility, which is harder than the waste management as a challenge, because mobility is something that really people needs to do in this kind of diffuse city systems. So it cannot subsidize only by public transport, even because the many city of the plane that you see under in the picture under this fog of smog are not suitable for a strong public transport system. But for example, we plan from many years ago to go back to the bicycle, because for the nature of this kind of cities, which are on the plain, which we have a good weather and etc., bicycle could be a strong resource. And from the beginning, the upper level from the state and the region, they didn't believe in this, because they see only strong strategy like to build infrastructure or to do something very strong. So it's been a hard way, it's still a hard job to convince them, for example, that for the 90% of the city of the plain of the north, not only Reggio Emilia, but all the other, the strategy based on cycling is even stronger than a strategy based on strong investment in infrastructure. And so that is what I wanted to tell you. I hope to give you a good vision about the problem that we have to face, not really going inside a single of them. This is just a view of our city, so you have an idea what I'm talking about, and that's a thank you to you for listening.
Thank you so much, Paolo. I think it's very interesting to understand. You've got 5 layers of government that need to work together. So this multi-level governance that I mentioned at the start of the conversation is critical to make sure everybody understands role, mandate, but I think the point that I really like that you made is listen to your local government. The local government understands responsibilities and needs, and it doesn't always have to be massive infrastructure, but it can also be very much incentives to shift to people to bicycles, people walking. But again, then you need to address your air pollution so that people want to cycle and want to walk in their cities, of course, as well. I see a lot of questions came in. I'm trying to bundle them a little bit just to have the conversation where we have now a couple of minutes to discuss. So if I may ask Mr. Nikhil Mijar, if you could join us, and Sudhir also, if you could switch on your video, that we can just have a conversation on the questions that came in. Framing the questions, maybe bundling them, I like the question, how can equitable planning approaches be tailored to address the different and specific needs of different communities? So you might have richer communities, you might have districts where poorer people live. Where do we bring that equitable planning in? I think this is a question that the just transition is a strong topic and an important element in all the work we're doing. Does anybody have an example where you are bringing that equitable planning into your particular work, making sure that everybody is on board, everybody is involved in your planning processes, and all can benefit from a better quality of life? Would anybody like to answer that one? Maybe, Mr. Mijar, if I may point to you, you very much focus on schools, and you've identified the different schools in your district that need more support. I assume where the ones who actually need more support have been maybe not prioritized recently. Is that also linked maybe to communities or parts of the community where there are poorer people or people who are more vulnerable, or where there are more children in the community? Why did you prioritize those particular schools in your planning?
Once we are targeting how to reduce the private vehicular dependency and increase the public transit and non-motorized transit, we can't look at the whole city. We have to target few communities, and once we start targeting some communities, slowly change will happen. So the most vulnerable group is the school-going kids, and they were more accident prone. And the amount of traffic congestion that the city is facing due to a lot of student traffic in the city, or the parents dropping and picking their kids from the school, if that reduces, or if that is shifted to public transit, then a lot of less number of vehicles will be there on the street. And that is why we targeted the school audience. And at the same time, we are also having our own equitable road distribution guideline, which talks about equal space for pedestrians, for trees, for cyclists, for hawkers, for street vendors, for parking, and for bus stops, everything. So we have our own policies, and we also are having our own guidelines, because we are a democratic country and we have to work with people, with people's participation, take their consensus and then move ahead. So we depend on surveys, we depend on public suggestions, objections. We have our own development plan, master planning, spatial planning process, which we go through. And it's a very dynamic process, and that way we are ensuring how equitable environmental behavior can be brought into the picture.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful approach. I think it's really a nice way of framing, and you're also using data and research to inform the decision making, which is really helpful. Maybe, I don't know, Ms. Fitri, if you would like to share your camera and join the conversation, but maybe in the meantime, a question to Paolo. If you're looking at, you've got this complex governmental system, so EU, from the EU level to the local government in this municipality of Reggio Emilia. I know one of the concepts that has been embedded in the European Union approach is the principle of subsidiarity, which means the decision taking or making takes place at the appropriate level of government. So do you feel from the municipality perspective that you have adequate roles, mandates, and responsibilities, or do you need more to have that equitable transition to be able to plan more efficiently, to finance more efficiently your local projects that bring that people perspective into your city? You're muted. If you could just unmute.
There are different between from different topics. I mean, there are some things that are very clear to everybody that we can do it with the help of any other level of governance, which is works, and some other no. I give you an example different. Before I told you about how sustainable mobility doesn't work really. I could say something more about that. For example, in the city, all the plans, all the activity about mobility are called mobility. It means the idea that people, especially, and not only goods, move from a point to the other. So it's making something like conscientious, so active. But the same things is called in the national level transport policy. So they have a kind of cultural different vision about that. Doesn't exist a kind of mobility vision in the national level. They see the transport system, and in the transport vision, the infrastructure came before of the people. For example, I give you just a short view. The people move inside the city with rules, which are traffic rules. In Italy, all the traffic rules are connected in a book, which is this size you see here, a very big one, which is called the Code of Traffic Road Rules. And it is called the Traffic Road Rules. In the actuality, if you see that from the point of view of the people of the city, that's not a code of rules for the road, but is a code of rules for the people when in the moment in where they are moving. It is a kind of rules of the bigger social system of relation that the city has, because the main point where the people meet each other is not in office or in their home where they can meet somebody they probably know well they meet, but in the road of the city, it's happened all the linking between the people. So if the mobility is, for example, is viewed from the point of view of the relation of the people, is something completely different to see the mobility from the point of view of the relation between cars. If you think about that, for example, if you meet, I don't know the experience in Pune or Jakarta, but I can tell you about Italy, Reggio Emilia, but say Rome. If you meet somebody else in the traffic in the morning, in the traffic jam, you hate them, you swear against them, you always hate them. So the relation between the mobility based on cars is a relation that put every day a little still of hate inside your community. After many years of this, your community is destroyed. I mean, everybody hate each other. They feel they scare about their neighbors. Obviously, if you meet them cycling, walking, or inside the public transport, it could be anyway a problem because you could have an accident or whatever. But you meet the people, you see them. Maybe you meet somebody that you didn't know before. And that's happened, that you transform like a industrial society where everybody has to stay in their own place and go back at home and go to work and not doing anything. In a modern society where something happened simply because the people have the opportunity of meet each other to understand what's happened, not inside building or inside a shopping center, but in the road of the city. In the road of the central city, you saw a picture of my main square with the municipality is as a pedestrian area. Okay, that's easy, but especially in the road of the suburbs area of the area where the cars is used much more. So that's a really different vision of approach that we have to work to share together this vision to make something in the middle. Because if they give me money to make a parking structure underground, they doesn't help me really, because obviously I could help that. But if I build a big parking structure inside the city, probably I get more car traffic and not more people meeting each other. So that's, for example, is a level where we have to talk each other.
Excellent. I think that's a wonderful example, Paolo. There was a question on multi-level governance with the question whether it's perceived to be a barrier. I actually would say it's more maybe an opportunity, but maybe, Sudhir, would you like to share a bit of perspective also from your work when UNEP working with national governments? How do we help this space of multi-level governance leading to multi-level action? How do we enable that? Because basically national governments have to change their position to bring that principle of subsidiarity to the conversation, that the level of decision making is at the appropriate level. The local level, as Paolo rightly mentioned, is the level that is the closest to the citizens. That's where you need to listen to your people and bring that into your planning. While the national level looks at policy, but it's very abstract. It's very far away from this people and the equitable approach. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Marek. A very difficult question since I'm not an urban development specialist. But that's a very important one. And I think it's also a stage of development which kind of governs in some of the historical perspective, which kind of comes into play as to what is the, the appropriate level of decision making, especially cities or the lowest level of government where the interaction with the individual is highest should have a larger scope of decision making than at an abstract level at the national level. Now, I've lived in Europe, I've worked in developing countries. So from a European perspective, I think the development have come to a stage where the national integrity or the kind of is not at a question. And I think things have evolved on decision making with a larger set of responsibilities, including raising of finances being passed on to lower tiers of government. I think most of the developing countries, the challenges that, the developing countries they're working with is still coming out of colonial regimes. They're still looking at basically creating a national identity, since most of the countries had diverse states within which were integrated into one nationality. India is a good example of that. So to some extent, there is a certain amount of political kind of a thinking that you need a strong national government to keep the country together, and that kind of does affect. I know I'm not getting into the part of it, but that is a big big part of the difference between EU and in developing countries. And I think that might take some time. But what you also see is slowly that the governments have now started realizing that some of the decision making. So if you look at India, if you look at Indonesia, from my experience, a large part of, say, power structure, infrastructure development, the decision making is much more at the national level because it's a much more integrated national level infrastructure being created. Whereas in India, the Ministry of Urban Affairs doesn't set any kind of an operational guidelines, but sets a policy framework or the enabling frameworks. Now, the question is, what is the level of feedback that is going from the bottom level, from the local city level? And I think that feedback has to be something which needs to be strengthened towards the top so that they have better data available in terms of what systems work, what kind of solutions actually people are looking for. And that kind of then develops the policy framework at national level. Currently, what is missing in most of the developing countries is not a very strong system. I would not say that there is no system, but there is not a very strong system of this upward flow of information and its collation at the state or the central level. And that needs to be strengthened in providing information. Now, the other factor is like in Pune, Mr. Mittal mentioned that there's a lot of data collection happening, and these are some of the recent things happening. These are, Pune is one of the more, I would say, lighthouse cities, which is doing a lot of new things and which can kind of be used by other cities in India as well as other countries. And data there has become a one key platform. And I think that is another part which was missing most importantly in the urban planning or the urban development space, actual data collection on a more frequent interval. It was done in most of the places on a 10-year or a 20-year cycle, but not on a more regular basis that could kind of then filter in upwards. The second aspect, what I would say is in developing countries is bringing in the research and the, academic institutions into the picture, because I think there has been a bit of a bifurcation between in my experience, where the government at every tier within developing countries doesn't to that effect use these research and academic institutions, which do have a lot of knowledge, do collect a lot of information, and can actually provide the appropriate policy recommendations, because they're not the ones taking the decisions, but the recommendations and filter out information from bottom to top as to what would be that the national government should limit itself to and what is the freedom or the space it should provide to the local governments.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective there, Sudhir. I think maybe wrapping up the conversation, and this conversation hasn't stopped. We need to continue this also through the U20 Manthan process and making sure that that feeds into the G20 conversations. We need equitable planning approaches. That's certainly agreed on by everyone. How you do that is context specific, tailor-made to your country, to your city, but maybe framing it from a strategic perspective. We need strong institutional levels at all levels of government, not just strong national level, but also strong and empowered local government level, to make sure that they bring that planning and the equitable planning perspective to the table, listening to what citizens want, listening to the very diverse stakeholder groups in a city, because you would have very different perspectives, but you need to get a good plan that especially supports and enables the poor, the vulnerable, those who do not always have a voice, need to be represented also by the local government. And from the national level, we need that enabling framework that doesn't just create the space to implement, but that allows piloting and testing new ideas, that allows and calls for innovation and creativity. So that's a flexible enabling framework we're looking for from the national level that would make it exciting to work and develop new concepts. And lastly, but certainly not the least, that learning and sharing space between the city representatives. That's the space that we provide through Urban Shift and through ICLEI. And we need to have more conversations and learn across continents, across countries, most certainly. I think the European cities can share, but also can learn from the developing countries and vice versa. It's an exciting space that we really need to foster more, and we will be doing so as well. I would like to hand over to Erni Kumar, if he's still with us, to wrap up the session for us. So thank you so much for a wonderful panel and your sharing of your perspectives and great presentations that give me a cause for hope. Kumar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marike, and I was so happy to listen to all the conversations. I think that is more important. Manthan is like a discussion, like Manthan is thinking and discussing. That is what we want to do it, and I think we have all achieved this. Marike, I just want to thank you for moderating this entire session. And I also want to thank all the 4 speakers who have given us their city perspectives. And want to thank NIUA, the director, and all the organizers from the NIUA side, which they have helped us a lot in arranging this particular session. So without wasting, I know that we have crossed almost 30 minutes. Without wasting any time, I just want to once again thank you all the participants, plus speakers and that. We will have maybe a proceedings on this particular session. We will share it with all the people. There are a few more questions. I know that they are there, not answered directly, but if speakers, if they feel that we will come back to all of you, please answer those questions. We will share it back to the people who have asked those questions. So if that is okay, we will send you those questions to all of you, and you can answer them also, so that they get answer for each and every question what they have asked on that. So once again, thank you. A good day to all of you wherever you are. Please take care and all the best. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.